Okay, Shavua Tov everybody, good morning and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday morning as we are entering a new Parashah, as we enter the 9 days. Of course, we are reading Parashat Devarim. We are entering a new Sefer, the fifth and final book of the 5 books of our Torah. The book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy. Why is it called Deuteronomy in English? Because actually it comes from the Hebrew. Mishneh Torah, which is given by the Rishonim, when they describe, when they describe the different names of each book, the book of Bereshit, they call it Yetzirah, the Genesis. Then you have, Shemot, Exodus, Vayikra, Leviticus, Bamidbar, Numbers, Chumash Pekudim, and finally Devarim is called Mishneh Torah, which means a repetition of the Torah, or in English, Deuteronomy. Okay, the second. And it's basically Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of his life, as he recounts the entire 40 years to this young, new generation that's going to enter the land of Israel. Of course, the Parashah must always be read before Tisha B'Av, as it is going to be this year. One of the reasons is because the Parashah has in it the famous word Echa. Our Parashah has the word Echa, very rare word. We don't find it many times in the entire Tanakh. Of course, Echa is the name of the Megillah that we read on Tisha B'Av, and it finds its way into our Parashah when Moshe Rabbeinu says, chapter 1, Pasuk 12, Echa esa levadi tarhachem umasa'achem veribechem. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Jewish people at the end of his life, how can I bear unaided the trouble of you and the burden and the bickering, all the bickering going on for 40 years. Moshe complains to Hashem, how am I supposed to carry these people? And he uses the word Echa, okay? Anyways, there's a lot to learn from our Parashah, and there's a lot to learn from the entire book of Devarim. What's very interesting is that we'll find, and that's going to be the topic of today's class, if you pay attention in this parashah and all the parashiyot, the way Moshe repeats the episodes that we know, stories that we've read, and we'll find actually differences. There's a lot of details that are mentioned here that we didn't read or that were not written the first time. So you're actually getting the opinion, or you're getting the angle of Moshe Rabbeinu on these stories. So there's a story that we know, the story of the spies. We read that story a few weeks ago, Parashat Shelach Lecha, where Moshe dispatches the spies, and we know the story, the way it plays out from the way the Torah tells it to us. That's the only source we have. But we're going to come now to the book of Devarim, and we have another source. We have Moshe Rabbeinu's version. And we will be surprised that the version of Moshe is not exactly the same as God's version that we read in Parashat Shelach, which is going to cause us problems. It's going to raise questions. How can it be that Moshe's version and God's version is not exactly lined up? They saw the same story. They were both I hope none of them are lying. It would be difficult to explain that. So that is today's class. So open up to please the book of Devarim, if you have it online or hard copy, chapter 1. And we're going to study today, with the help of Rabbi Bernstein, the episode of the spies. Again, the way the spies happen in Shelach, we know. We'll quickly reference the verses that are important. And then, the way Moshe repeats the story in our Parashah, it's the first story that he repeats to the people. And there's a lot to repeat, there's a lot to criticize them. Okay, there's the spies, there's the well, the water, there's the complaining, there's the man, there's the egel, the golden calf. There's a lot to go through. Moshe is going to go through all of them. But the first story that he repeats in length, and I say in length because he alludes to everything in the first pasuk. In the first pasuk, Moshe Rabbeinu hints to it all. These are the words that Moses says to the Jewish people in the Transjordan. And then it gives us a very interesting location of where they are. They're in the desert, Bamidbar. Ba'arava, Mul Suf, near Suf, Ben Paran u Ben Tofel, between Paran and Tofel, and Lavar, and Hatzerot, and Dizahav. These are all Moshe is telling them, the Pasuk is telling us where they are when Moshe is rebuking them, but if you look closely, this place doesn't exist. It's like if I tell you, meet me on the corner of 5th Avenue and 3rd Avenue. Sorry, which one? 5th or 3rd? Yes, exactly. On the corner of 5th and 3rd. That can't be. They're parallel. You can't be on the corner of 5th and 3rd. What's the cross section? Moshe is giving them over here, and therefore the commentaries point out that Moshe is not telling them where they were, but he is hinting to averot that they committed in every one of these places. So Di Zahav is not a place, but Di Zahav is gold. What sin is that referring to? This one is easy. Zahav, that's the golden calf. Right? So each one of these places is alluded to, but he does then go and delve into it in depth. So the first criticism is what they did with the spies. So here we are. We're in chapter 1, verse 22. And let's see something very interesting. First of all, we will read that there's information that appears in this story that doesn't appear in the original. Parashat Shelach Lecha, when we read about the spies the first time, it begins with God saying to Moshe, Shelach Lecha Anashim, send spies. Well, whose idea was it to send spies? If I were to ask you, who's the one that initiated that project? Well, if all we had was the first 4 books of the Torah, we would think it's God. That's what Pasuk says. God says to Moses, send people. But then we open our Parashah. And so here we go. Chapter 1, verse 22. Pasuk says, Vatikrevun elai kulechem. Moses says to the children of Israel, you all approached me. Vatomru nishlecha nashim lefaneinu. And you asked me to send people ahead of us. Veyahperu lanu et haaretz. They will spy out the land. Veyashivu otanu davar. And they will report back to us. Et haderech asher na'aleba. The path on which we should proceed. Vete'arim asher navu alehem. And the cities which we should first attack. This is the way Moshe is repeating the story. 40 years later, 38 years later. Very puzzling. The Torah, the first time, is leaving out very important information. If you ask me, Torah doesn't tell us that it was the people that offered it. In the beginning, in Shelach Lecha, it sounds like it was strictly God's idea. Well, you may say that it's not important whose idea it was, so Torah didn't care to tell me. Okay, so if it's not important, then why is Moshe repeating it now? If it's not important information, if it's insignificant, then why does he mention it? Why is he rebuking them about it? He's only here to tell them important information that they need to hear about their mistakes. Whatever was the mistake of the spy, of the episode of the spies. So if it's important, the Torah should have told me back then. If it's not important, Moshe should have not said it at all over here. We continue to answer this question a little bit further. The Pasuk says that we just read, Vatikrevun elai kulechem. You all approached. All of you. It's an interesting word, no? Kulechem. Rashi says, Be'irbubia. In a disorderly manner. There was chaos. Yeladim dochafim et azkenim. The young were pushing the elderly. Vezkenim dochafim et harashim. The elders were pushing the leaders. Everyone's attacking. And as Moshe is describing this point in their history, as Moshe is recounting what happened in the desert with the spies, he's adding a detail which again we may say is not important. He's rebuking them even how they approached. yeah, it's so bad what you guys did. Not only did you send the spies, imagine a guy's like, killing someone. Yeah, could you imagine? Imagine a person is killing. He's literally there with a machine gun, just killing people. And then you say, yeah, and you know what? Also, look, he's not wearing a kippah. What? Who's thinking about the kippah? The guy's killing. He's violating murder. You worried about the kippah? Like, where are we going with this? Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them about the sin of the spies, that they lacked faith in Hashem. And, by the way, you also were a little bit disrespectful. You were pushing the elders. Moshe is not letting anything slide over here. He's going to hit them for every single mistake they did. And it's interesting, it sounds like Moshe's would have sufficed to say that you lack trust in Hashem. But for some reason, he also is not going to let that eclipse the smaller infractions that they made. He's going to make sure to remind them of every small sin. You weren't wearing a kippah. Yes, I know you were eating chametz on Pesach, but you also forgot to say a bracha. I think Moshe is maybe going a little bit too far over here. Why is Moshe mentioning something that's so irrelevant? But actually, we touched on this in the past, back in Parashat Shalach, if you remember. But we had to ask one more question. And that is, was sending the spies a good thing or a bad thing? Meaning, we know that it was a disaster at the end, how it played out. But was the idea itself a flawed idea? Or did it have potential? Now, the truth is, sending spies is nothing less of doing our due diligence. It's what we call in Hebrew hishtadlut, doing our effort. We have to do our effort. We have to do our part in everything in life. We have to, again, Hashem agreed with it, but there's also a rule, the way you want to go, that's how the heavens will let you go. Doesn't mean that Hashem necessarily agreed. Right? Just because he let them do it, it doesn't mean that he was on board with it. We're asking now, was it a good idea to send spies? So the truth is, there's nothing wrong with sending the spies. Matter of fact, Yehoshua ben Nun, when he becomes the leader after Moshe's death, he sent spies into the land of Israel. And there's nothing wrong there. There's no critique. He doesn't do anything incorrect. The problem is, how do you send the spies? Why do you send the spies? Is it our hishtadlut? Realizing that we have to do our due diligence in life, but ultimately it's part of, the greater plan of what Hashem wants us to do. Meaning, a lot of times in life, there's a seesaw between hishtadlut and bitahon. And that's a dangerous, dangerous seesaw. When our hishtadlut goes up, we decrease in our bitahon. When our bitahon is very high, sometimes we think that we need less hishtadlut. I'll give you an example. Okay? Last week we saw with Bnei Gad and Reuven. They said to Moshe, we like it here in the Transjordan. We want to stay. And then Moshe starts rebuking them. Shame on you. You're going to let your brothers fight alone? You're not going to, fight with them? They said, no, we're going to go first. What's going on over there? Why did Moshe think they didn't want to go? Why didn't they want to go? So the answer, says the Orah Hayim, is that actually the two tribes of Reuven and Gad thought they didn't need to. They thought Hashem is fighting for us. All along he was fighting for us. Who fought for us till now? Sihon and Og, it's all Hashem. They assumed it's going to be the same when we go into Israel. The same way God got for us these lands, God's going to get for us those lands. So why should we come with you? You don't need us. And Moshe taught them a valuable lesson. Hashem doesn't need you. But he still needs you to do your effort. He still needs you to do Hashem can do miracles. But he needs you to just play the game. He needs you to do your due diligence. And say, okay, we're going to go. We're going to do our due diligence. We're going to fight. And then Moshe repeats. And he says to them, yeah, you're going to go in. And if you read the Psukim, I believe we touched on this last week as well. Moshe is repeating the entire sentence that they say, and he's just spitting it back at them. Again, unnecessary words. They say, okay, we're going to go in. And Moshe says, okay, if you go in, then I'll let you do it. And they say, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to do it. Da, 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 da. Why all the repetition? But again, Moshe is now adding another detail, another layer. You see, because now the tribes of Reuven and Gad, they go to the other side, the other extreme. If it's us, then we'll go and we'll fight. And Moshe says, no, it's not you. It's Hashem. Don't take God out of the equation. So yes, you have to go in, you have to fight, but ultimately know that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu if you succeed. And Moshe adds the words, Lifnei Hashem. You're fighting in front of God, which they didn't say. So first, the tribes think that it's only Hashem. Then Moshe says, no, you have to do something. He says, okay, fine, so it's us. Moshe says, no, but it's Hashem. You know, when I go to a very good surgeon, when I do everything possible to make sure that I get healed, I could very quickly forget that Hashem's the one healing me. That's why it's very important that whenever we get a refuah shlema, we always say Hagomel, Hashem, it was you, not the doctor, not the medication, not the vaccine. You know, it's very easy for us to look at Pfizer and Johnson and Moderna and to say, that's it, Corona's gone, thank these vaccinations. It's not thanks to the vaccinations, thanks to Hashem. So Rabbi, you mean that we shouldn't have invested money into the vaccines? No, I'm not saying that. We were supposed to invest into the vaccines. We're supposed to do everything that we can to get those vaccines out into the market, as we should have. And that is our hishtadlut. And now we must know that it's God that helped us succeed with all of these projects. Very difficult balance in life. Again, it's very easy to know it's Hashem when I do zero. The more I do, the more I think it's me. We ask ourselves, when the Jewish people approached Moshe Rabbeinu, what was going on in their minds? Did they realize that it's all Hashem? Or did they get too, maybe, weighted on the side of Hishtadlut? And that's really what's going to change whether or not the entire project of sending the spies is a good one or a bad one. So let us look at the mood of the Jewish people when they come with the idea to send spies. Vatikrivun elai kulechem, the pasuk says, all of you approached me. Why did everybody have to approach Moshe? Why did everyone have to go? Why can't you send one person, two people, two representatives? Send them to Moshe. He'll ask him to send spies. Listen, Moshe, you know, we're going into Israel, and I think it's fair that we do our hishtadlut. Yes, we know it's Hashem. The fact that everyone felt that they had to approach Moshe with the idea indicates that it was coming from a place that was lacking trust in Hashem. It was coming out of anxiety. They were nervous. They were worried. They were panicking. They were desperate. There was chaos. The kids pushing the elders pushing the leaders. And therefore, that's what Rashi is saying when he says that everyone was shoving and pushing, not rebuking them that they were lacking kavod, respect. It's part of the first problem. When there's pushing, when everyone's nervous, it's showing me, says Moshe, that the entire episode was coming out of a lack of bitachon in Hashem. It's an indicator that it was not part of your bitachon, but an absence of it. To send the spies without hishtadlut, to just go into Israel without sending spies would have been a mistake. But to send the spies without bitachon was asking for problems, was going to lead to negative outcomes. It's losing sight that ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's going to conquer the land for them. Right? Well, that's a beautiful idea. But we now come to the second point, and that is one more observation with the story. We saw in our first observation that there's extra information in our parasha, right? And in the original story, the information seems to be missing. So what's another example of that? Right? Moshe, he's recording the episode of the spies, and the pasuk says, take a look, this is back in Bamidbar. Let us open to Bamidbar. Bamidbar chapter 13, sorry, here we go. It says, "Vayeshevu mitur haaretz miketz 40 yom." They came back from touring the land after 40 days. Vayelechu veyavu el Moshe l'Aaron. They come back to Moses and Aaron. Ve'elkor dat bnei Israel. They come back to the Jewish people. El midbar Paran, to the Paran desert. Vayashivu otam davar. They report back. Vayarum et peri haaretz. They show them the fruit of the land. Vayisaperu lo vayomru banu el haaretz asher shelchtanu. We went to the land that you sent us to. Vegam zavat halav udvash hi veze pirya. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. These are the fruits. Efes ki azham. However, you should know that the people are very strong. From Parashat Shelach, the spies, what we just read, say the land was good, and then they continue to slander it. And they continue on saying it's a land that devours its inhabitants. It's Eretz Ochelet Yosheveha. The people are dying left and right. There were funerals everywhere we go. There's giants. They cannot be conquered. Here, in our parasha, it's very interesting. In our parasha, Moshe Rabbeinu leaves all of that out. In Parashat Shelach, he doesn't mention any of this. He just simply says, you did not wish to enter. You didn't want to go in. Why is it that Moshe in our Parashat Devarim, again, when he's repeating the entire episode to the Jewish people, he leaves out all of this important information? And there's a very powerful lesson, says Rabbi Bernstein. Often we refer to this sin as the sin of the spies. Right? That's how we call it. But the truth is, it's only half the equation. Yes, it's the sin of the spies. It began with the spies. And the spies received their punishment. Whatever happened to them, we know. But at the end of the day, whose fault is it that we didn't go into the land of Israel? It's a story of 12 spies, but it's really the fault of the entire Jewish people. Moshe is in our parasha. He's kind of leaving out all of the information about what the spies said, because he's trying to say, you know what? Yes, the spies said this, the spies said that, but bottom line, at the end of the day, it's your fault. You, the people. You could have said to the spies, no. You weren't forced to accept their gossip. Hashem promised you the land. And just like Caleb and Yehoshua said, no, we can go. You guys could have done the same exact thing. And if you didn't, you know who's to blame? You. Stop calling it the sin of the spies. Stop blaming the spies for your mistakes. When the story happens, the story tells us exactly what the spy says, and it goes all into elaboration. But Moshe over here says to them one pasuk. Look at this. Verse 25. Unbelievable. Our parasha. Vayikchu beyadam pri haaretz. Moshe is saying, the spies went up. They brought back fruit. They told us, Vayomru tova haaretz. They said how the land is good. Velo avitem la'alot. But you didn't want to go up. Whoa, time out. 1 second. Is that all the spies said? That the land is good? Didn't the spies tell us that people are dying, there's giants? Moshe leaves all of that out. Moshe, if you just read our parasha, it's unbelievable. If all you read was our parasha, Moshe says to them, listen, let me tell you the story the way it's said over here. Moshe says to the people, children of Israel, listen, we sent spies. They came back. They said it was good, but you didn't want to go. That, I think, misrepresenting the story a little bit, no? It's underplaying the story. The spies didn't say it's good. They started off by saying it's good, and then they continued very quickly in saying but it's very bad. But, right? Capital B-U-T. Moshe leaves all of that out. And you know what he's trying to tell them? There's nobody to blame for the fact that you didn't go in except for yourselves. As far as I'm concerned, the spies said it's good. But they didn't. Yeah, but it was up to you to believe them or not. You know, we're not always in control of what we hear. Sometimes we're in situations. People say Lashon Hara. We're not always in control of what happens to us. Sometimes things happen. But we are always in control of how we react to those situations. That's a very important lesson. And that's what Moshe is teaching the Jewish people. What the spies said is not up to you. It's not your fault what they said. But you did have choice whether or not you wanted to accept what they said. As far as I'm concerned, says Moshe, they said the land is good. Because it's irrelevant what they said. What matters is how you responded. And so he repeats the story. And the episode that he's trying to tell them, the lesson is not about what the spies said or the bad reports, but it's you believing those reports. It's a very powerful lesson. It's a lesson in taking responsibility in life. Sometimes things happen. People say things, people do things. We're not always in control of the situation that we find ourselves in. But we are in control how we react. The spies, the people can't control that. They're going to say what they're going to say. But whether or not you believe them is completely up to you. And there's nobody to blame. And if you believe them, it's your fault. And many, many years later, when I repeat the story, it's irrelevant what the spies said. What matters is what you said, what you did. How many times two siblings could be fighting? And one says, yeah, but you know what they did? It doesn't matter what they did. Bottom line, it matters how you responded. Very powerful lesson. And this explains to us a question that we have every time we read this parasha. Open up to page Pasuk 37. After Moshe goes through the entire episode of the spies, and the only two people that are going to survive is Kalev and Yehoshua, take a look. Then he says something very odd. Gam bi hitanat Hashem biglalchem. And the Lord was also angry with me because of you. And he said to me, you, Moses, will not enter the land because of the sin of the spies and because of the children of Israel. Now, if I were to ask you right here, time out, why doesn't Moshe go into the land of Israel? What would you answer? Because he hit the rock. We all know that. Here, Moshe is literally lying through his teeth. He's like trying to blame them for what he did wrong. And God got angry with me also because of you. And I also can't go into the land of Israel because of the spies. What are you talking about? Moshe had no problem going into the land of Israel till now. That's not why he didn't go in. Don't blame us for your stuff. Why is Moshe blaming them? And the commentaries are puzzled by this, and some try to squeeze in somehow that actually it's true. Part of Moshe's denial into entering the land of Israel was because of the sin of the spies, some way, somehow. However, at the end of the day, it's the sin of Parashat Chukat, it's the sin of hitting the rock. How is the episode of the spies relevant to the hitting of the rock? And what Rabbi Bernstein says here is nothing short of fantastic. And he says, perhaps these are not words of rebuke. Perhaps Moshe here is trying to empathize, and Moshe's message to the people is that, sometimes in life you cannot escape the consequences of your actions with the excuse of they made me do it. You want to blame the spies? You want to say it's the spies' fault? Moshe is saying it's not the spies' fault, it's your fault. And as far as I'm concerned, the spies said the land is good. If you didn't go in, it's you because you didn't want to. And Moshe now throws in that it's not only you that did it. It's something that I experienced myself, says Moshe. I myself, whatever the sin of the Mei Merivah, he hit it, he lacked Kiddush Hashem, he hit the wrong one, he didn't speak. It's very clear that whatever he did was a result of the pressure that the people were placing on him. Miriam just died, his sister just passed away, Moshe is mourning. People come, we want water, they pressure. And Moshe is saying to them, my message to you, that I can never ever in life, we can never say, it's your fault. It's because of you. You made me. You got me so nervous. Sometimes we get, right, people around us, they get us angry. We curse. We scream. We yell. And then when we're confronted, how could you say that? How could you talk like that? How could you say those words? How did you hit? How did you do? Say, I can't already. It's not my fault. They don't stop. It's enough. Moshe is saying to the children of Israel, in life, you can never blame other people for what you did wrong. And that's something that I experienced. I acted incorrectly at a later occasion with the water. And really, it was because of you. It's the pressure that you guys put on me. But it's not an excuse. And ultimately, I'm responsible for hitting the rock. So when Moshe says to them here, unbelievable. I don't know if we appreciate what Rabbi Bernstein is saying here. Gam bi hitanaf Hashem b'glalchem. And God got angry at me also because of you. Because of what? The spies? No. Nothing to do with the spies. Moshe is not throwing in. And also I can't enter because of the water. And it's kind of your fault. That's how I felt, at least. I felt that it's your fault. You put pressure on me to get water, and I had to do what I did, and I hit the rock because of you. And I'm also punished. I also can't enter the land. Moshe is kind of empathizing, showing them, you can't enter because, and you feel it's the spy's fault, but at the end of the day, you're the only one to blame for your problems. I feel like that also. I also feel like I could blame you guys. But ultimately I can't. Whatever I did with the water and the rock is my fault. So when Moshe says in our Parashat, Pasuk 37, and also God got angry at me, he's not talking about the spies. So then why is he mentioning it here? Wait, talk about it later when you talk about the water. Moshe is saying, yeah, but I'm just trying to show you that I relate. The same way you don't feel like it's your fault. I didn't feel like it's my fault, but it's inexcusable. That's a very powerful lesson. It's something that we spoke about in the past. To not blame other people for our mistakes. It's something that we spoke about on Purim, if you remember, with Achashverosh. When he couldn't go to sleep at night. And at first, he thought that maybe there's some type of plan to ambush him, to attack him. Why is Haman and Esther, going to a party? What's Haman doing at the party? Maybe they're trying to kill me. There's a conspiring. Maybe there's some type of idea to kill me. Why is no one warning me anyways about this? Why? Achashverosh then starts looking around at all his guards. Shame on all of you. And finally, Achashverosh does the unthinkable. He says, you know what? Maybe it's my fault. Maybe there's somebody in the past that did save my life and I didn't pay them back. And he opens the books and he finds indeed it was Mordechai that saved his life. So Achashverosh begins. He can't sleep because it's all of your faults. All of yous. And he transforms and he becomes a person that's able to look inward. Very powerful lesson. Not to blame other people. They're all doing it. So what if they're all doing it? If I could share with you just one beautiful Ben Ish Chai. I wonder if I could even dare find it. I don't know if I could find it online quickly. The Ben Ish Chai, in his introduction to the laws of Nitzavim, He brings a maaseh with a rabbi that says there was 3 times in my life that I was stumped. 3 times in my life that I was stumped. Okay? And we're not going to go into all 3 times, but one of the times he says he had to walk through a field. He had to get to the other side. And he could either walk all the way around or you could walk through it. Now, walking through it is private property, but he already saw that people created a path through the field. It was already beaten. The grass was all destroyed. There was already kind of a man-made path through this private property. So he walked through the field on this route that people have created. And when he gets to the other side, he sees a little girl. And she says, "You're a thief." He says, "What are you talking about?" She says, "You're a thief. You trespass private property. You're destroying this person's field. You're ruining his grass." He says, I didn't ruin nobody's grass. Look, it's already paved. There's already a path over here. She says, "Yeah, thieves like you made that path." And he gave this girl a kiss on the head. And he said, "Ashrechem, praiseworthy are you, the children of Israel." And says the Ben Ish Chai that these three stories, we didn't go into all 3, but these 3 stories never actually happened. He's quoting, I believe, the Hidah. And he says that they're mashals, they're parables. A lot of times in life, we do things that are not allowed, they're not okay. And our excuse is, other people are doing it. Other people are walking. So what if I do this illegal thing? There's other people, right? You go to a parking lot and there's no parking spots, but you see a few people parked illegally in the fire lane. So you park in the fire lane with them. They're all there. What? You're right. They're thieves and you're thieves like them. To never give it an excuse in life. Other people are doing it. This is what this rabbi learned from this little girl. That's a very important lesson. Moshe says to the Jews, don't blame other people. A wrong is a wrong. Yes, you can't control always what's going on around you. Maybe the people around you are going to speak gossip today. You can't control that. But you could control if you stay. You could control if you choose to listen. You could control if you choose to accept, to believe. Maybe where you go today, the food that's going to be brought to the house is not always in your control, whether it's going to be kosher or not, up to your standards. But we control whether we want to eat it. Rabbi, what do you want me to do? They ordered the food. I didn't order it. They ordered it. Okay. I'm not blaming you. They ordered it. But why'd you eat? That was your choice. So all of these ideas are very powerful ideas, especially, in the areas of gossip, in the areas of speech, especially in this time of the year. But these are 2 very beautiful points from our Parashat, the point of Hishtadlut and Bitachon, the balance, and the maybe more pertaining message for today. They made me do it. To never excuse ourselves with that line, they made me do it. Either way, we'll stop over here. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.